This is the Immigrant Experience Show coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, from Joy Drop Store in Market Mall. And my name is Moji Taiwo. I'm your host, the author of I Give Because I'm Blessed Because I Give, a chronicle of an immigrant's journey. And most recently, I published a children's book series called Grandma and Her Munchkins. And there are 5 of them in colorful, interactive, and educational books for your children ages 4 to 9. But today, we have with us Miss Shashi Behl, right?
Yes, it is. Shashi Behl.
Shashi Behl.
Great
I
to be
got
here.
it right. Welcome.
Thank
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience Show. It's a show where we highlight and feature immigrants of first and second generation that have done their bit to contribute to society as Canadians and society at large. So let me introduce my special guest today. Shashi Behl is the owner and founder of Joy Drop, partner and co-founder of Foundway, and founder of Twisted Goods. A passionate entrepreneur and strong advocate for women in business. She has championed women as chair of Alberta Women Entrepreneur, board member of Futurepreneur, advisory committee member of the 51 Loan, and board member on the Calgary Public Library Foundation. Shashi has been on the W100 Profit list, P200 list, represented Canada at the G8 Young Business Summit, has been recognized as one of Calgary leaders of tomorrow. And in 2022, that was just last year, Joy Drop was named Independent Retailer of the Year for Canada. Shashi has founded and partnered with various women-led businesses before opening Joy Drop. She is inspired by the passion that goes into every design in this beautiful space that we call Joy Drop, pieces which are part of a much bigger and beautiful tapestry. Shashi loves traveling with her family, meeting new people, road biking, practicing yoga, and reading. I guess she's going to read my book.
Absolutely.
It fits.
Next one on my list.
Yes. Her motto is get comfortable with being uncomfortable and look to have a yes moment in every day. I believe in that as well. Welcome, Shashi.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, yes. So, the Immigrant Experience Show. Let's begin with your origin,
Okay.
your birth origin.
My birth origin. Well, I would say that I'm a first-generation Canadian, very proud Canadian, but I'm also proud of where I came from and my parents came from. My parents are from India, and they did the typical thing that you saw a lot in the 70s. Went from India to England. I was born in England. My dad then went to small town Saskatchewan because in order
Wow,
Yeah.
Saskatchewan. Isn't that most story with immigrants?
Yes.
We go where we're needed.
Yeah, and where we can utilize the skills so that we can also get eventually get permanent residency. Because most immigrants, the long game is to get your PR, right? So at that time, when my dad came, they were looking for teachers in small towns in Saskatchewan, and that was how he was able to come to Canada under a work visa. And then my mom and I came 2 years later. And even that is probably a pretty typical, that's probably a really good immigrant story, where you're separated from your family for a while until, someone settles, gets roots, or starts.
Sacrifice that immigrants make.
Yeah, and just all for a better life. And my dad did that, 100% he did that so that myself, my sister, and my brother could have a life, or his anticipated children could have the life he couldn't see them having in India.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you arrived in Saskatchewan in what year?
Oh, do I have to say that? Because that will age me.
But you know, we age really well. We don't crack.
We don't crack. That's true. Yeah, you know, we in the 70s.
In the 70s.
Yes, and then I didn't get my PR for about 8 years later. It took that long, but we were able to stay under his work visa.
Okay.
So.
And all your education were in Canada?
In Canada, 100%. I grew up in a small town of 500 people in Saskatchewan. You know,
500 people.
Can you imagine? My parents went from Delhi, India, London, England, to a town of 500 people. And my culture shock. My mom did not fare so well, and that's another story.
Yes,
but
yes.
she didn't. It just she. You know, it is such a different culture, and I know that you know this, but when we talk about, you know, it takes a village to raise a family. It truly is embodied in the Indian system, and then she was alone, no family whatsoever. And you know, my dad tried to help, and they tried to go to Regina for communities, but I remember my experience.
I was
very
going to
lonely.
say, how was your experience in school?
Yeah, you know, I am a person. I'm going to answer that in two ways, because I've always had this bit in me, and that does come from my dad too, to take risks. That everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
And if you're going through something that's not great, it eventually will end. And so not to dwell on it right there. So when I think
it opens your mind up to possibilities.
It does.
It forces you to think beyond your current circumstance.
Yeah.
I believe in that too.
I think so too, because you're going, how do I get out? And that should tell you everything.
Yes.
How do I get out?
How do I get out
Yeah.
of this situation that it's not comfortable for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ended up leaving. I left home at 16 and did my grade 12 in another city.
Okay.
And then I traveled for a year. But it's funny, even, you know, a lot of times here, when you hear people leaving home, it's like, oh, you're not doing anything else. I always knew that I had to get an education.
Yes.
It's the reason my parents came here.
I came to Canada alone at the age of 19.
Right? And how was it? What brought you here?
Oh my goodness. You have to watch my interview.
I'm going to that. Like, there's so many things now I have to do tonight. Read a book, read the kids' books.
Yeah, and somebody actually turned the microphone on me a few months ago and had a little bit of my story.
I imagine it is fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And inspiring.
Well, I try, and that's why we're here, to inspire people. Yeah. So after you left home and you traveled, you got a degree and everything, what happened next?
Yeah, well, what happened next is, I remember I always knew I had that entrepreneurship in my blood. You know, talking about, my dad came as a teacher, but he also had another business as well at home. He had a mail order business for school supplies, ran it out of a small town, and that he kept that post office open, actually, with the business.
The town post office.
The town post office, yeah. And we worked in that business. So all I've ever known is that if you want something, you need to work for it.
Yes.
And and no matter how much work it takes to get it done.
To get it done,
You just get it done.
Again, I want to go back to that story where your dad has a day job, but also running a business. Again, typical of most immigrants. I tell people that I don't remember the last time I held one job.
Yeah. I had 5 jobs in university, so I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I went to university full time. So it was, I just have never known. My passion is not having downtime. I know that sounds silly, and I do allow myself to rest and rest my brain, but I enjoy being productive. Like,
yes.
It gives me joy. But back to my dad and that other, business, for him it was always learning, but when he came here, you have to remember he came here with one suitcase and $20. And then my mom had a suitcase and I had a suitcase. And I remember all like this, how we lived. This store, this store is probably, I would kid you not, 5 times bigger than the one room we moved to. So in Panashai, because the town needed the physics chemistry teacher, so they gave him a little shed and to live. And then so he just kept on building onto that. And so it was the old doctor's office, actually. I shouldn't say it was the old doctor's office. So it had a room and a bathroom. And so our room, and then my mom built a big garden in the back. And I remember her rose gardens, just because that was, and how devastated she was every year because she couldn't grow the flowers she thought.
She wanted to grow in the climate is not conducive to, Well, that's wonderful. So, when did you start your business?
Yeah, I started Joy Drop. I don't know which one. I would say I opened up my first business in '95.
Okay. And what was that one?
That was called Body Blocker Company.
Okay.
And I would call that my second degree, which means that I did not make any money, but I got a very good education.
Yes, you learned.
And it also really, really just confirmed that I enjoy business. I enjoy the business of business.
Yes.
And then I started, with that money, what I did is I actually had nothing. I had to close it down, but I had this fabric left. I sold it. Was able to get $5,000 from that. I just got married to the most supportive man ever, and I said, I'm going to Bali now. And I went to Bali. I bought sarongs, came back. I followed festivals for 6 months. Okay. I sold the sarongs and turned that into $70,000.
Wow, incredible.
Thank you. And then opened up the first Twisted Goods in Saskatoon.
Okay.
And eventually we built that out to 10 stores and employed over 150 people. I had a head office in Calgary, and I sold that company about 7 years ago.
And started this one.
And then I started Fernway, and I've invested in other companies, and then I started this one. I started this one actually while I had Twisted Goods open.
Okay.
Just because I was getting bored.
You have a restless mind.
Yeah, I think so. So do you. I heard you retired, and then in your retirement, you wrote books.
I wrote books, and I started this show.
Yeah.
And among other things.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What is next for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my husband and I are talking about that right now. And I'm going to say what's next for me is creating space, whatever that looks like, so that I do love to read, so that I can learn. I feel that all of my learning has been for continuous growth in business. And I'm at the place now where I want continuous growth, but in any area that I want, just for enjoyment for me. Does that make sense?
Does that include mentoring?
Absolutely.
New, young, budding entrepreneurs? So
that has been a part of my ethos ever since I thought I had something to give back. On top of the volunteer work that I do, every year it's my own personal mandate that I help two up-and-coming entrepreneurs with their business, and I just mentor them in any way, shape, or form they'd like.
You mentioned some of your volunteer work. Can you share some of them with us?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talked about...
And the importance of immigrants finding time to volunteer and the benefit of that.
Yeah, when people talk about volunteer, they think, oh, you're giving up. And I love the name of your book because my response usually is, no, I'm getting much more than I'm giving up. In fact, giving up is the wrong phrase. I get much more than the time that I put in. And what that means is that whenever you volunteer, and I'm a little selfish about where I volunteer.
Oh, well, you have to be what is selective?
Selective.
Yes.
Because I look to see who else is in the room and what can I learn from them. and what can I give, the rapport. So, that's definitely part of it. But then it's also, what are we doing to actually create change? Is this an organization that is really going to create change? Or is it an organization that is going to look good on paper? And I hate to say that, but there are some of those.
Yes.
And the Calgary Library Foundation, I'm actually going to my first meeting next week. I could jump up and dance right now.
Yes.
Because when I told my dad that, he started to cry. As an immigrant, we grew up in the library. Every Saturday we didn't have any money.
Can I share something with you? With these children's books, my goal, and I've been, saying it whichever way I could, my goal is to get them into all of our 21 public libraries in Calgary. And after that, to get them into immigrant servicing agencies and beyond. Yeah. So, and my other book, my memoir, I give because I'm blessed. A few copies were donated to the public library, so that people can have access to it. Yeah. So, to those people who are watching our interview, and if you have a inroad into the public library and donors, people who can help us get the books into there, I'm open.
Absolutely. I think also to people that are listening, if you want to really have impact with your dollars, $5, $10, the amount of education, mental health, the impact that has on our society, it's undescribable.
Yeah, so education, investment in education in any form, shape, it's a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, for new immigrants or struggling immigrants or any person who at a crossroads this moment, what word of wisdom will you want to share with them?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's wisdom, but maybe I can just experience share. I feel like... Experience
share. I like that one. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I feel like for me what's worked is when I am most uncomfortable is when those are the times that I know that I'm going to learn something. So I forced myself to go into a situation, and that is where the learning happens. And I know that there's an extra barrier, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, because I've always said, this was my piece at AWE. When I first started, I was the only brown woman on the board. And I said, okay, it's one thing, there's a glass ceiling for women, but for brown women or black women or yellow women, there's 2. Because there's
3.
Sometimes that's what I was saying. Yeah. I don't know all of them. I only know mine. And I would say there's 2 there's the cultural barrier. But for sure, and so you need, that is why diversity is important. So your voice matters.
Yes.
And you may not think it matters, but it matters.
And don't ever think because you're the only one in the room that look differently that's actually a barrier. Because if you step out and claim your space, other people then will look and listen.
100%.
Yeah.
And change happens slowly. And start, go to a community if maybe you're not comfortable at that, but go to a community center and start slowly. But you said it, volunteer.
Yes, volunteer.
If you have the time, and I know that...
Create the time.
Yeah.
I say to people, if you have children and they're already going to school, you're already dropping them at school.
Yeah. Spend an hour.
Spend an hour. Yeah.
It's on so many levels. It integrates into society.
Yes. Yeah. Any question that you have for me that's not going to take me too long to answer?
I would love to know the meaning of the color behind the books, because I am a lover of color.
Of colors.
And I enjoy the 5 different colors.
Yes. Well, let me show our viewers again all the colors. They are so beautiful. One is missing, and the one that's missing is a purple.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, The colors are just colors that I think will resonate with children, and it's captivating. And I found out from feedback that I've gotten, one parent who actually worked at the library said that when she opened it, reading it, she found it soothing. She was reading to her child, but she found the, soothing. Yeah. So that's it. It's just because it's captivating. Yeah, yeah.
Well, not just to children, to adults too. Our artwork is all.
It's all that. That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Shashi, for creating this time and special space for us to conduct this interview. I know that the store will be opening very soon, but we're very, very happy to be here. So I'm going to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, our supporter, Niwe Academy, Agape and Akin Online Coaching, Kagri Security, and of course, Elite Spa and Wellness and Amar. Thank you so very much, our viewers, for listening. Don't forget to watch, like, share, subscribe, and be our supporter. Until next time, we're going to say goodbye for now.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. That was fantastic.